When the snow falls thick enough to erase the world, when you're alone in the white void at 3 a.m., that's when they appear. 10 professional drivers. 10 nights they'll never forget. 10 encounters that defy explanation. This is the most disturbing Whiteout trucker horror stories. What you're about to hear happened on roads you've driven. The question is, will you make it through the storm? It was February 14th, 2019, Valentine's Day, but there was nothing romantic about the hell I was driving through that night. I was hauling a full load of electronics from Denver to Cheyenne, and the weather forecast had lied to me. They said light snow. What I got was a full-blown Wyoming blizzard, the kind that turns highways into white tunnels where you can't tell the road from the sky. By 11 p.m., I was crawling at 20 miles per hour on I-80, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. The wipers were fighting a losing battle. Every few seconds, the wind would slam into my rig hard enough to make the whole truck shudder. I could barely see my own hood ornament, let alone the road ahead. My CB was crackling with warnings. Other drivers pulling over, accidents reported miles ahead, DOT saying to shelter in place if possible. But I couldn't stop. Not yet. The nearest rest area was still 10 miles out, and stopping on the shoulder in this whiteout was a death sentence. Some kid in a sedan wouldn't see me and would plow right into my trailer. So I kept going, counting mile markers when I could see them, praying my tires stayed on the asphalt. That's when I saw her. At first, I thought it was a reflection, some trick of the snow and my headlights. But then I saw her again, clearer this time. A woman, standing on the shoulder, right arm extended, thumb out, hitchhiking, in the middle of a goddamn blizzard. She was wearing a thin summer dress. Light blue, maybe white, hard to tell in the storm. No coat, no hat, no gloves. Her dark hair whipped around her face in the wind, and she just stood there, perfectly still, like the cold didn't exist. My first thought was, this woman is going to die out here. My second thought was, something is very, very wrong. But what was I supposed to do? Leave her? I'm a father. I've got 2 daughters. If one of them was stranded in a storm like this, I'd want someone to stop. So I hit the brakes, gently, because you don't do anything sudden in a whiteout, and pulled onto the shoulder about 50 feet past her. I put the truck in park, grabbed my flashlight, and turned to open the passenger door. She was already inside. I didn't see her walk up. I didn't hear the door open, but she was sitting in my passenger seat, hands folded in her lap, staring straight ahead through the windshield. Her dress was soaked through, clinging to her skin. Water, or maybe melted snow, dripped onto my seat, pooling beneath her. Jesus Christ, I muttered, heart hammering. You scared the hell out of me. She didn't respond, didn't even blink. I reached over and cranked the heat up. You okay? What the hell were you doing out there? Still nothing. Her face was pale, not just pale, but wrong. Grayish blue, like meat that's been in the freezer too long. Her lips were cracked and purple. And her eyes, God, her eyes, they were open but empty, like she was looking at something 1,000 miles away. Miss, I said louder this time. Can you hear me? Finally, she turned her head, slow, mechanical, and when she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper, but I heard every word. Thank you for stopping. I forced a smile, trying to calm my nerves. No problem. Where do you need to go? She didn't answer, just kept staring at me, and that's when I noticed her breath wasn't fogging. Mine was. The cab was cold, sure, but not that cold. Every time I exhaled, I could see it. But her? Nothing. You're freezing, I said. Reaching for a blanket I kept behind the seat. Let me. The moment my hand touched her shoulder, pain shot through my fingers. It was like grabbing a block of dry ice. So cold it burned. I yanked my hand back with a yelp, and when I looked down, my fingertips were red and stinging. I looked back at her. She was still staring. And now, I could see tiny ice crystals forming on her eyelashes, spreading across her cheeks, creeping down her neck. Who are you? I whispered. She smiled. A slow, sad smile. No one else stopped. What? They all drove past me. Every single one. I waited so long. My throat tightened. How long were you out there? She tilted her head, like she was trying to remember. I don't know anymore. It's been so cold. So very cold. I just wanted someone to see me, to know I was there. I glanced away just for a second to grab my phone. I needed to call someone. Highway patrol. An ambulance. Someone. But when I looked back, she was gone. The passenger seat was empty. Completely empty. But it was soaked, water dripping onto the floor, pooling in the cushion. And the seat itself was frozen solid. Ice crystals covered the fabric, spreading outward like frostbite across skin. I reached out to touch it. My hand came back wet and freezing cold. No, I whispered. No, no, no. I threw the truck into gear and got the hell out of there, white-knuckled and shaking. I didn't stop until I reached the rest area 10 miles up. I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, engine running, heat blasting, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. But the seat was still wet, still frozen. The next morning, after the storm passed, I did something stupid. I looked up missing persons reports for that stretch of highway. I don't know why. Maybe I needed answers. Maybe I needed to prove I wasn't losing my mind. I found her, Emily Cartwright, 26 years old. Disappeared 3 years ago, February 12, 2016. Her car broke down on I-80 during a blizzard. She called for help, but by the time anyone arrived, she was gone. They found her body 2 days later, frozen solid, less than a mile from where I picked her up. She'd been trying to hitch, waiting for anyone to stop. And when I saw her picture, I knew. Same dark hair, same blue dress, same face, same empty eyes. I still drive that route. I have to. It's my job. But every time there's a storm, every time the snow starts to fall, I feel it. That cold, that presence. And sometimes, late at night when the wind is howling and the whiteout closes in, I swear I see her again, standing on the shoulder, thumb out, waiting for someone to finally stop. It was March 9th, 2021, and I was hauling auto parts from Billings to Missoula. The weather was bad, not apocalyptic, but bad enough. Freezing rain had turned to snow, and by the time I hit the Montana backcountry around 2 a.m., I was in a full whiteout. Visibility was maybe 10 feet. The highway had become a tunnel of swirling white, and I was crawling at 30 miles per hour, praying I wouldn't rear-end someone or slide off into a ditch. I had my CB on Channel 19, listening to other drivers call out conditions and hazards. Most of the chatter was standard stuff: weather warnings, road closures, trucks pulling over to wait it out. The static was heavy, crackling with interference from the storm. Then the voice came through, clear, calm, almost robotic. "Driver, you need to stop." I frowned, glancing at my CB. The channel indicator showed 19, but I didn't recognize the voice. It didn't sound like any trucker I'd ever heard. Too measured, too emotionless. I keyed my mic. "Say again? Who's this?" No response, just static for a few seconds. Then, "Stop now. Check your trailer. Something is wrong." A chill ran down my spine. I checked my mirrors instinctively. Everything looked normal. My trailer was sealed tight, just like it had been when I left Billings 6 hours ago. My load was auto parts, engine components, brake pads, standard freight. Nothing unusual. Dispatch had confirmed everything before I rolled out. I laughed nervously and keyed the mic again. "Yeah, okay, buddy. Real funny. Who is this?" Silence. I kept driving, but the voice had gotten under my skin. Something about the way it said, "Something is wrong." Flat, mechanical, emotionless. Made my hands tighten on the wheel. I told myself it was just another driver messing around. Bored, playing games to pass the time. But then the voice came back. "Driver, stop your truck. Check your trailer. Something is wrong." This time it wasn't a suggestion. It was a command. And the way it repeated itself, word for word, same inflection, same tone, sent ice through my veins. I thought about ignoring it. Thought about just keeping my head down and pushing through to Missoula. But I couldn't. Something in that voice made me believe it, made me need to check. So I took the next exit, a rest area barely visible through the snow, and pulled in. The parking lot was empty, just me and the storm. Wind howled across the asphalt, pushing walls of snow sideways. I grabbed my flashlight, zipped up my coat, and stepped out into the freezing night. Snow bit at my face like tiny needles as I walked to the back of the trailer, boots crunching in fresh powder. The doors were sealed, locked. The tamper-evident security tag was intact. Everything looked fine, but then I heard it. Scratching. Faint, frantic scratching coming from inside the trailer. My stomach dropped. My hands started shaking. I pressed my ear against the cold metal doors and listened. The scratching continued. Then it turned into banging. Desperate, rhythmic banging. And then, God help me, I heard voices. Muffled, weak, pleading. Help us. Please, please let us out. I stumbled backward, nearly falling in the snow. I pulled out my radio and called dispatch, my voice shaking. Yeah, this is Unit 447. I'm at the rest area off exit 114. I think there's something in my trailer. The dispatcher sounded annoyed. What do you mean, something? I mean, I hear people. There are people in my trailer. A long pause. Then, more serious. Your manifest says auto parts. I know what it says. I'm telling you, there are people in here. They're banging on the doors. Do not open that trailer. Stay where you are. I'm calling the state police right now. I backed away from the trailer, flashlight shaking in my hand. The banging continued, louder now, more desperate. I could hear them crying, begging, their voices thin and broken. 20 minutes later, 3 state police cruisers pulled into the rest area, lights cutting through the snow like searchlights. The troopers approached with hands on their holsters, faces grim. One of them took bolt cutters to the security seal. Stand back, he ordered. The doors swung open. 3 people stumbled out. 2 men, 1 woman, emaciated, skin pale and cracked from the cold. Eyes wild, darting, terrified. They collapsed into the snow, gasping, crying, clutching at the troopers' legs. Paramedics rushed forward. I stood there, frozen, watching as they wrapped the victims in thermal blankets and loaded them into ambulances. One of the troopers turned to me, his face hard. You have any idea what you were carrying? I shook my head, speechless. Human trafficking. These people have been locked in that trailer for at least 4 days. No food, no water, temps below freezing. Another few hours and they'd be dead. I felt sick. I wanted to throw up. I'd been driving for 2 days with them in there, sleeping at truck stops, eating meals, while they froze and starved 10 feet behind me. Who told you to stop? The trooper asked. A voice, I said quietly. On the CB. Someone told me to check the trailer. He frowned. What channel? 19. He pulled out his radio, spoke to dispatch, waited. When he came back, his face was pale. We checked the transmission logs. No one was broadcasting on channel 19 in this area tonight. No one called it in. You're the only one who reported this. That's impossible, I said. I heard him, clear as day. The trooper looked at me for a long moment. Then he said quietly, I believe you, but according to every record we have, no one else was on that channel. I never heard that voice again. I've tried. I've driven that same route dozens of times. CB on channel 19, waiting. But it's just static now. Empty air. Whoever or whatever told me to stop that night saved 3 lives. And I'll never know who they were. January 18th, 2020. I'll never forget that date. I was running I-90 through South Dakota, hauling a refrigerated load of frozen goods to Sioux Falls. It was supposed to be a routine haul, 8 hours, maybe 9 with weather. But the storm hit around midnight, and it hit hard. 1 minute I could see the road. The next, it was like someone had thrown a white curtain over my windshield. Total whiteout. I couldn't see the lane markers, couldn't see the shoulder, couldn't see anything except swirling snow in my headlights. I slowed down to 40, then 30, hazards blinking. My CB crackled with warnings. Drivers pulling over, accidents ahead, highway patrol advising everyone to find shelter. But I was still an hour from the nearest truck stop, and stopping on the shoulder in zero visibility was suicide. So I kept going white-knuckled, praying. That's when I saw the headlights. 2 beams, cutting through the snow behind me. Close, too close, maybe 10 feet off my bumper. I keyed my CB. Hey, driver behind me on I-90 eastbound. You're riding my tail pretty hard. Back off a little, would ya? Static. The lights stayed right where they were. Then, as I watched in my mirrors, more appeared. For headlights, then 6, then 8. A whole convoy was forming behind me. Tight formation. No spacing between vehicles. Just a line of trucks following me through the whiteout like a funeral procession. My heart started to pound. This wasn't normal. Professional drivers don't tailgate in a storm. We give space. We communicate. This was wrong. I tapped my brakes, just a warning flash. They slowed with me, perfectly synchronized. I sped up to 45. They matched my speed exactly. Not a single truck fell behind or pulled ahead. Just perfect, mechanical precision. All right, what the hell is this? I muttered, keying the CB again. Convoy behind me, identify yourselves. Who's running this show? Nothing. Just static and wind noise. I checked my mirrors again. The headlights were still there. 8 sets now, maybe more appearing in the distance. All lined up. All following. For 20 miles, they stayed on me. Perfect formation. No chatter. No horns. Just silent, relentless following. My hands were shaking on the wheel. Sweat dripped down my back despite the cold. Every instinct I had was screaming that something was wrong. Then the snow cleared. Just for a moment, a gap in the storm where visibility opened up to maybe 50 feet. And I could finally see them. Old trucks, 1970s era rigs, rusted, dented, paint peeling in long strips, covered in road grime and salt like they'd been driving for decades without ever stopping for a wash. The chrome was tarnished. The windshields were cracked and filthy, but the cabs were empty. No drivers, no passengers, nothing. Just steering wheels turning on their own, following the curves of the highway with smooth, mechanical precision. My blood turned to ice. I felt my stomach drop into my boots. This wasn't possible. Couldn't be possible. No, I whispered. No, that's not. The snow closed in again, swallowing the convoy in white. But I could still see the headlights, still feel them behind me, getting closer. I didn't think. I just reacted. I slammed the accelerator to the floor. My speedometer climbed 50, 60, 70. The engine roared. My load shifted slightly in the trailer, and I heard something crack, but I didn't care. I had to get away, had to put distance between me and whatever the hell was following me. At 80 miles per hour, I screamed through that whiteout, praying I wouldn't jackknife or plow into another vehicle. My hands ached from gripping the wheel. My heart felt like it was going to explode, but I kept my foot down. The headlights stayed with me, matching my speed, never falling back. And then, just as suddenly as they'd appeared, they were gone. The lights vanished. The road behind me was empty, just darkness and falling snow. I slowed down, gasping for breath, and took the next exit. I pulled into a truck stop, parked, and sat there for an hour with the engine idling, too terrified to move. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The next morning, after the storm passed, I asked around. Other drivers at the truck stop, DOT officers at the way station, anyone who might have seen something. No one had. No convoy, no old trucks, nothing on the highway cameras, nothing on the police reports. But I knew what I saw. I know what I saw, so I did some digging, and that's when I found it. February 1979, that exact stretch of I-90, a massive pileup during a whiteout. 11 truckers driving in convoy formation. The lead truck jackknifed. The others couldn't stop in time. Every single one of them crashed. All 11 drivers were killed on impact. And now, on certain nights, when the snow is thick enough, when the storm is bad enough, they're still out there. Still driving in formation. still following the road, still trying to reach a destination they'll never see. I don't drive I-90 in winter anymore. I can't, because I know they're waiting, and next time I might not be fast enough to get away. I pulled into a truck stop outside of Fargo, North Dakota, around 2:30 a.m. on January 22, 2018. The blizzard had been building for hours, and by the time I got off I-94, it was a full whiteout. The kind where you can't see past your own hood. The kind that makes you question whether you're still on the road or drifting into a ditch. The truck stop parking lot was nearly full smart drivers who'd pulled over to wait it out. I found a spot in the back corner, away from the idling rigs and the diesel fumes. I was exhausted. I'd been driving for 11 hours straight, and my eyes felt like sandpaper. I needed sleep, just a few hours. I locked the doors, double-checked them, cranked the heat to low, and reclined my seat. Outside, the wind howled like something alive, shaking my truck every few minutes. Snow piled up on my windshield, turning the cab into a cold, dark cave. I closed my eyes. That's when I heard it. 3 knocks. Slow, deliberate, on my driver's side door. Knock, knock, knock. I opened my eyes, heart already racing. Probably another driver needing help. Jump start. Directions. Something. I sat up and looked out the window. Nothing. Just snow swirling in the darkness. Hello, I called out, cracking the window an inch. Silence. Just the wind. I waited, listening. Maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe it was just ice falling off the mirror or something shifting in the cab. I was tired, exhausted. My mind was playing tricks. I settled back into my seat and closed my eyes again. Knock, knock, knock. My eyes shot open. Same rhythm, same spot. Driver's side door. This time I sat up fast, heart hammering, and looked out the window. I could barely see anything through the snow, but I pressed my face to the glass and squinted into the storm. Nothing. No one. Who's there? I yelled louder this time. No answer. I grabbed my flashlight from the console and shined it out the window. The beam cut through the falling snow, illuminating the empty space beside my truck. No footprints. No person. Nothing. Just wind and white. I rolled the window back up, hands shaking now. This wasn't right. Someone had knocked. I heard it, clear as day, but there was no one there. I checked the passenger side mirror. Empty. Checked the CB, just static. No chatter. I was about to convince myself I was losing my mind when it happened again. Knock, knock, knock. But this time it was on the passenger side. I spun around in my seat, flashlight beam swinging wildly. The passenger window was fogged up from my breath, but I could see well enough. No one was there. No shadow. No movement. Just snow piling up on the mirror. What the hell? I whispered. My chest was tight. My hands were sweating despite the cold. I locked the passenger door even though it was already locked. Then I sat there, frozen, waiting. The knocking moved. Knock, knock, knock. This time it came from the back of the cab, right behind my head. I felt every hair on my neck stand up. The back of the cab was a sleeper berth, just a small space with a mattress. No windows, no way for anyone to reach it from outside. But something was knocking. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just listened. Then the knocking started moving around the truck. Slowly, methodically, from the back of the cab to the passenger side, then to the front, then back to the driver's side, circling, like something was walking around my rig, testing every surface, trying to find a way in. Knock, knock, knock. Driver's side door. Knock, knock, knock. Passenger side door. Knock, knock, knock. Back wall. Knock, knock, knock. Roof. It was on the roof now, right above my head. I could hear it, not just the knocking, but footsteps. Slow, heavy footsteps crunching through the snow on top of my cab. I grabbed my phone to call 911, but there was no signal. The storm had killed the towers. I tried the CB again, nothing but static. I was alone, completely alone. The knocking stopped. For 10 seconds, there was nothing, just silence and the wind. I sat there, barely breathing, flashlight gripped in one hand, phone in the other. Then I heard it. A voice, muffled, distorted, coming from right outside my driver's side window. It was whispering my name, not my handle, not driver or hey buddy, my full legal name, first and last. Michael Patterson. My blood turned to ice. No one at this truck stop knew my name. I hadn't talked to anyone, hadn't checked in anywhere. I was just another anonymous driver in the night. Michael, let me in. The voice was wrong, flat, emotionless, like someone reading words off a script. And it was close, so close I could hear it clearly over the wind. I didn't answer, didn't move, just sat there paralyzed. Michael, it's so cold out here. Please let me in. Tears were running down my face now. I don't know why. Fear, maybe, or something deeper. Some primal part of my brain screaming at me that whatever was outside wasn't human. The knocking started again. Faster now. More frantic. All around the truck. Doors, windows, roof, everywhere. And the voice kept repeating my name, over and over, begging to be let in. I don't know how long it lasted. Could have been 5 minutes. Could have been an hour. Time stopped meaning anything. All I could do was sit there, shaking, praying for it to stop. And then, as suddenly as it started, it did. The knocking stopped. The voice went silent. The only sound was the wind and my own ragged breathing. I waited until dawn. Didn't sleep. Didn't move. Just sat there with my flashlight and my phone, watching the windows. When the sun finally came up and the storm started to clear, I got out and checked the truck. I don't know what I was expecting to find. Footprints, maybe. Handprints in the snow. Something. But there was nothing. The snow around my truck was undisturbed. Smooth. Perfect. Like no one had been there at all. I asked other drivers if they'd heard anything. Knocking. Voices. Anything strange. They all said no. Quiet night. Just the storm. But I know what I heard. I know someone, or something, was circling my truck, calling my name, trying to get in. I don't sleep in truck stops anymore. I can't. Because every time I close my eyes, I hear it. Knock, knock, knock. And that voice whispering in the dark. Michael, let me in. March 3rd, 2017. I was eastbound through North Dakota, hauling chemicals from Williston to Grand Forks. The weather had been bad all day, freezing rain, then sleet, then snow. But around 10 p.m. it changed. The snow turned into fog. Thick, freezing fog that clung to everything like wet cotton. I slowed to a crawl, maybe 15 miles per hour, hazards on. My headlights barely penetrated 10 feet ahead. It was like driving through a white void. No road markers, no guardrails, just endless white nothing. That's when I saw it. A shape, moving through the fog on my left side, parallel to my truck, keeping pace. At first, I thought it was another vehicle, maybe a car trying to pass. But the shape was wrong. Too tall, too thin, and it was walking. I leaned forward, squinting through the fog, trying to get a better look. It was human-shaped, 2 legs, 2 arms, a head, but the proportions were off. The arms hung down past where the knees should be. The torso was too long, and it moved with a strange, gliding gait, smooth and effortless, like it was floating just above the road. I told myself it was a trick of the fog. A road sign, a fence post, something mundane my tired brain was misinterpreting. But then it turned its head. Toward me, I felt my stomach drop. I couldn't see a face, just a dark, featureless oval where a face should be. But I felt it looking at me, watching, studying. I sped up, 20 miles per hour, 25, 30. The shape kept pace, effortlessly, like my speed didn't matter. I slowed down to 10. It slowed with me. I tried to get a better look in my side mirror, but every time I focused on it, the fog seemed to thicken around it, blurring its outline. My headlights wouldn't touch it. The beams just passed through like it wasn't there. But I could see its shadow, long and distorted, stretching across the road. My hands were shaking on the wheel. I reached for my CB, keyed the mic. Anyone on I-29 northbound near Grafton? I need someone to confirm something for me. Static. No one answered. I tried my phone. No signal. The shape was still there. Still walking. Still watching. Then it did something that made my blood run cold. It moved closer. Not quickly. Just a slow, deliberate step toward my truck. Then another. And another. Until it was right alongside my driver's side window. I could have reached out and touched it. I didn't dare look directly at it. Kept my eyes on the road ahead, even though I could barely see. But in my peripheral vision, I could see it there. Tall, silent, walking beside me, and then it spoke. I didn't hear it with my ears. I heard it inside my head. A voice that wasn't a voice. Flat, cold, emotionless. Stop. I didn't stop. I pressed the gas pedal harder. 35, 40. Stop the truck. No. I whispered. No, no, no. The shape moved again. This time, it stepped in front of my truck. I slammed on the brakes. The rig screeched, tires sliding on the icy road. I felt the trailer start to jackknife. For a terrifying moment, I thought I was going to lose control completely, but the truck stopped, 10 feet from where the shape stood. I sat there, engine idling, hands locked on the wheel, staring at it. It was directly in front of my headlights now, but the beams didn't illuminate it. They just stopped, like the light was being absorbed. For 10 seconds, we stayed like that. Me in my truck, standing in the fog. Then it moved. Not toward me, not away. It just dissolved, like smoke dispersing in wind. One moment it was there. The next it was gone. The fog cleared instantly. In the span of a single breath, visibility went from 10 feet to half a mile. I could see the road, the lane markers, the stars overhead, like the fog had never existed. I sat there, shaking, gasping for breath. Then I looked down at my truck. My front bumper was dented, badly, like I'd hit something at full speed. And there were marks in the snow on my hood. Handprints. Long, spindly handprints with fingers that stretched at least 12 inches. I drove to the next town and pulled into a 24-hour mechanic shop. The guy who looked at my bumper whistled low. "What did you hit?" "I don't know," I said honestly. He ran his hand over the dent. "This kind of damage? You hit something big. Deer maybe, or a person." He gave me a look. "You sure you don't know?" "I'm sure," but I wasn't sure. Because when I looked at those handprints on my hood, still visible in the melting snow, I knew I'd hit something. Something that shouldn't exist. Something that walked through the fog. And something that knew I was there. February 11th, 2019. I was hauling lumber from Missoula to Billings, running through Montana backcountry in the middle of a February storm. It was past midnight, and the whiteout was so thick I could barely see my own mirrors. I was crawling at 25 miles per hour, praying I wouldn't slide off into a ditch or rear-end someone. That's when I saw it. A semi. Pulled off on the shoulder, hazards blinking weakly through the snow. Driver code says you always stop. Always. Could be someone freezing to death. Could be a medical emergency. Could be anything. You don't leave another driver stranded. So I slowed down, pulled over behind the rig, and grabbed my flashlight. The wind hit me like a wall when I opened the door. Freezing, brutal, full of stinging ice. I zipped my coat up to my chin and walked toward the truck. It was old, a 90s-era Peterbilt, covered in snow and road grime. The engine was off. No lights inside the cab. No movement. I knocked on the door. "Hey, you all right in there?" No answer. I knocked again, louder. "Driver, you need help." Still nothing. I tried the door handle. It was unlocked. The door swung open, and the smell hit me immediately. Stale air. Something sour and wrong. I shined my flashlight inside. The driver was still there, slumped over the steering wheel, arms hanging limp at his sides, head tilted at an unnatural angle. He was frozen solid. His skin was gray-blue, covered in frost. His eyes were open, staring at nothing. Ice crystals clung to his beard and eyelashes. He'd been dead for days, maybe longer. I backed away, stomach churning, and pulled out my phone to call it in. But before I could dial, I saw something that stopped me cold. Footprints. Fresh footprints in the snow, leading away from the truck. Not mine. I'd just gotten there. These prints were already filling in with fresh snow, but they were recent, within the last few minutes, and they led away from the driver's side door, the door I'd just opened. I followed them with my flashlight beam. They went about 20 feet into the snow-covered ditch beside the highway. Then they just stopped. No body, no explanation, just prints that ended in the middle of nowhere. My heart was pounding now. I looked back at the truck. The dead driver was still there, slumped over the wheel. But something was different. His head had moved. I was sure of it. When I first looked, his head had been tilted to the left. Now it was tilted to the right, facing me. "No," I whispered, backing away. "No, that's not." His eyes blinked. I ran. I don't remember getting back to my truck. Don't remember starting the engine or pulling back onto the highway. All I remember is driving, fast, reckless, desperate, until I reached the next town. I called the state police from a gas station, told them about the stranded rig, the dead driver. They said they'd send someone. 3 hours later, a trooper called me back. "We found the truck," he said. "Driver's been dead for 3 days. Froze to death when his engine died. But we need to ask you something." "What?" "You said you saw footprints leading away from the truck?" "Yeah, fresh ones." There was a long pause. Then, "We didn't find any footprints. Snow around the truck was undisturbed." "That's impossible. I saw them." "I believe you," the trooper said quietly. "But they weren't there when we arrived. I never found out who those footprints belonged to. But sometimes late at night I wonder, if that driver had been dead for 3 days, who opened his eyes? And who walked away from that truck?" I pulled into a rest area off Highway 94 in Minnesota around 1:30 a.m. on February 8, 2020. The whiteout had been relentless for hours, and I needed a break. My eyes were burning from staring into the swirling snow, and my back ached from the tension of white-knuckle driving. The rest stop was small, just a bathroom building, a few picnic tables buried in snow, and a parking lot that could fit maybe 10 trucks. When I pulled in, there was only one other rig there, parked at the far end of the lot, away from the lights. A Kenworth, older model, covered in road salt and snow. Its running lights were on, glowing softly in the storm, but I couldn't see anyone in the cab. I parked near the entrance, killed my engine, and headed inside to use the restroom. The building was empty, fluorescent lights buzzing, floor wet from tracked-in snow, everything cold and institutional. I did my business, splashed some water on my face, and headed back out. That's when I noticed it. The Kenworth was gone. The parking spot where it had been was empty, just snow and darkness. But here's the thing that made my stomach drop. The lights were still there, headlights and taillights, glowing in the exact spot where the truck had been parked. 2 bright beams pointing forward, 2 red lights in back, all floating in the empty air like the truck was still there, but invisible. I stopped walking, just stood there in the middle of the parking lot, snow hitting my face, staring at those lights. "What the hell?" I whispered. I looked around. No tire tracks. The snow where the truck had been parked was smooth and undisturbed, like no vehicle had been there at all. But the lights were right there. I could see them clearly, bright, solid, real. I walked closer, flashlight in hand, boots crunching through 6 inches of fresh powder. The lights didn't move, didn't flicker, just stayed there, steady and impossible. When I got within 10 feet, I could see details. The exact color temperature of the headlights, that yellowish halogen glow older trucks have. The specific shade of red in the taillights. Even the slight asymmetry where one light was aimed a little higher than the other. These weren't reflections, weren't optical illusions. They were truck lights, without a truck. I circled around to where the passenger side would be. The lights stayed consistent, maintaining their position like they were mounted on something solid. But when I reached out to touch where the headlight housing should be, my hand passed right through it. No resistance, no warmth, just cold air. The light flickered, once, twice, like an old bulb about to die. Then all the lights shut off at once. The parking lot went completely black. I stood there in the darkness, snow swirling around me, flashlight beams shaking in my hand. The only sound was the wind and my own ragged breathing. "Okay," I said out loud, voice cracking. "Okay, I'm done. I'm leaving." I backed away slowly, keeping my flashlight pointed at the empty space where the lights had been. Nothing moved. Nothing appeared. Just darkness and falling snow. I got back to my truck, locked the doors, and sat there for 5 minutes trying to rationalize what I'd seen. Reflection off the snow. Weird atmospheric phenomenon. Something to do with the storm. Anything. But I couldn't explain the details. The asymmetry. The way my hand passed through. The way they just shut off. I started my engine and pulled out of the rest area. In my side mirror, I watched the empty parking lot recede into the storm. For just a moment. Maybe a trick of the snow, maybe not. I thought I saw those lights again, glowing in the darkness, waiting. The next morning, after the storm cleared, I called the highway department and asked about the rest area. Asked if there had been any accidents there, any incidents, anything that might explain what I'd seen. The woman on the phone was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "That rest area has been closed for renovations since December. There shouldn't have been anyone there." "The bathrooms were open," I said. "Lights were on." "That's not possible. The power's been shut off for 2 months." I hung up, didn't argue. What was the point? But I know what I saw. I used those bathrooms. I saw those lights, and whatever truck they belonged to was there that night. Even if it wasn't. I've driven past that rest area a dozen times since then. Always during the day. Never at night. Never in a storm. Because I don't want to see those lights again. And I don't want to know what happens if I do. January 29th, 2018. I was driving through Wisconsin on Highway 51, hauling auto parts from Wausau to Madison. It was 3 a.m., and the February blizzard had come early and hard. Visibility was near zero. Just walls of white snow in my headlights and nothing else. I was crawling at 20 miles per hour, watching my odometer, counting the miles until I could find a place to stop. That's when I passed mile marker 127. Nothing unusual about it. Just a green reflective sign on a metal post. Numbers glowing in my headlights for a split second before disappearing into the storm behind me. I kept driving. 10 minutes later, I passed it again. Mile marker 127. I frowned, glancing at my odometer. I'd driven 12 miles since the first marker. I should be at mile marker 139 by now, but the sign clearly said 127. Must have read it wrong, I muttered, but I knew I hadn't. I kept going, eyes locked on the road, watching for the next marker. My GPS was spinning, the little blue dot circling endlessly, trying to locate satellites through the storm. My phone had no signal. The CB was nothing but static. 20 minutes later, I passed it again. Mile marker 127. My hands tightened on the wheel. I checked the odometer. I'd driven 22 miles since the last marker. But there it was again, same green sign, same white numbers, same exact spot. What the hell is happening? I tried the CB again. Anyone on 51 northbound? Anyone hear me? Static. This is unit 338. I'm stuck in some kind of loop. Anyone out there? Nothing. Just wind noise and crackling interference. Then a voice answered. Not dispatch. Not another trucker. Just a voice. Male. Calm. Almost resigned. You're in the loop now. My breath caught. Who is this? Doesn't matter. You won't get out until it lets you. Until what lets me? The road. The storm. Whatever this is. Just keep driving. Don't stop. And whatever you do, Don't look in your mirrors. What? Why not? Just don't. The CB went dead. I wanted to stop, wanted to pull over and wait for help. But the voice had said to keep driving. And something in his tone, that flat, defeated tone, made me believe him. So I drove. For 3 hours I drove through that whiteout, passing mile marker 127 over and over and over. My fuel gauge didn't move. My odometer kept climbing, 50 miles, 70 miles, 100 miles, but the marker never changed. And I didn't look in my mirrors. God help me, I wanted to. Every instinct screamed at me to check, to see what was behind me, but I kept my eyes forward, locked on the road ahead. Then I started hearing things. Voices, muffled and distant, coming from behind my cab, whispering, laughing, calling my name. I gripped the wheel harder, jaw clenched, and didn't look back. Something thumped against my trailer. Once, twice, like someone or something was walking alongside me, slapping the metal walls. I didn't look. Then I felt it. A cold breath on the back of my neck, like someone was sitting in the sleeper berth behind me, leaning forward, watching. Keep your eyes on the road, I whispered to myself. Don't look. Don't look. The breathing got louder, closer, and then suddenly it stopped. The voices went silent. The thumping ceased. The cold breath disappeared. I glanced at the mile markers. I passed it. I was out of the loop. The storm started to clear. My GPS snapped back to life. The blue dot reappeared, showing me exactly where I was. My phone signal returned, full bars. I pulled over at the next rest area, hands shaking so bad I could barely hold the wheel. I sat there for 20 minutes, engine idling, trying to process what had just happened. Then I checked my logbook. According to the timestamp, only 15 minutes had passed since I first saw mile marker 127. 15 minutes. But I'd lived 3 hours in that loop. I'd driven over 100 miles. I'd heard those voices, felt that presence. I called dispatch, tried to explain. They told me I was exhausted, hallucinating, that I needed to take a break. Maybe they're right, but I know what I experienced. And I know I'll never drive Highway 51 in a storm again. Because whatever that loop was, whatever holds you there, I don't ever want to go back. February 14th, 2021. Valentine's Day. I was hauling refrigerated goods from Des Moines to Minneapolis, frozen meat, packed tight in a temperature-controlled trailer. Standard job. Nothing unusual. The storm hit around midnight on Highway 35, and within an hour I was in a full whiteout. By 2 a.m., I needed fuel and a break. I pulled into a truck stop just south of Albert Lea, Minnesota. The place was nearly empty. Just 2 other trucks and the usual fluorescent glow of the convenience store. I topped off my tank, grabbed a coffee, and was about to get back on the road when I heard it. Breathing. Deep, rhythmic breathing. Coming from my trailer. I froze, coffee halfway to my lips, and listened. In. Slow. Deliberate. Like someone sleeping, or trying very hard to stay quiet. No, I whispered. No way. My load was frozen meat. Pork shoulders, beef ribs, chicken, all packed in refrigerated containers at -10 degrees. Nothing alive. Nothing that could breathe. But I heard it. I walked around to the back of the trailer, boots crunching in the snow, and pressed my ear against the cold metal doors. It was louder now, unmistakable. The sound of something breathing, something big. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and called dispatch. Yeah, this is Unit 276. I'm at the truck stop off exit 11. I need to report something. Go ahead, 276. There's something in my trailer. Something breathing. Pause. Your manifest says frozen meat. I know what it says. I'm telling you I can hear breathing. The dispatcher side. Could be a refrigeration malfunction. Compressor noise. This isn't a compressor. This is breathing. Another pause. All right, open the trailer and check for a malfunction. If you find anything unusual, call me back. I didn't want to open it. Every instinct told me to leave it sealed and drive straight to the depot. Let someone else deal with it. But I couldn't. I had to know. I broke the seal with shaking hands and grabbed the door latch. The breathing continued, steady, unchanging. I took a deep breath of my own and pulled. The doors swung open. Cold air rushed out, thick with frost and the metallic smell of frozen meat. I shined my flashlight inside. The cargo was there. Pallets of boxes, stacked and strapped. Everything secure. Exactly as it should be. But the breathing had stopped. "Hello," I called into the darkness. Nothing. Just silence and cold. I climbed into the trailer, flashlight beam sweeping across the stacks. Everything looked normal. No signs of tampering. No stowaways. No animals. Nothing. Then I saw them. Scratches. Deep, frantic scratches carved into the metal walls. Running in long vertical lines from ceiling to floor like someone or something had been clawing desperately to get out. My blood turned to ice. I moved closer, running my gloved hand over the gouges. They were fresh. The metal was still bright and raw where the scratches had torn through the paint. And then I saw the message, scraped into the frost on the wall, in shaky, desperate letters. "Let me out." I stumbled backward, nearly falling over a pallet. The flashlight beam swung wildly across the walls, and I saw more scratches. Dozens of them. Hundreds, covering every surface. Like whatever had been in here had spent hours, maybe days, trying to claw its way to freedom. "Oh God!" I whispered. "Oh God! Oh God!" I scrambled out of the trailer and slammed the doors shut. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely lock the latch. I called dispatch again. There are scratches, deep scratches, from the inside, and a message. Someone wrote, "Let me out," in the frost. Are you saying someone was locked in there? I don't know. Maybe. Or something else. I don't know. Drive straight to the depot. Don't stop. Don't open those doors again. We'll have security waiting. I drove 90 miles in complete terror. Every sound made me jump. Every bump in the road made me think something was moving in the trailer. And the whole time I kept expecting to hear it again. That breathing. When I reached the depot, 3 security guards and a supervisor met me. They opened the trailer with bolt cutters and industrial flashlights. They unloaded everything. Every box. Every pallet. Checked every inch of that trailer. Nothing. No stowaways. No animals. No explanation for the scratches or the message. "Could have been there before you loaded," the supervisor said. But he didn't sound convinced. "It wasn't," I said. "I checked, and the message was fresh." He didn't have an answer for that. They inspected the walls, took photos, filed a report. But in the end, they couldn't explain it. And they didn't try. I refused to haul refrigerated loads after that. Told dispatch I wanted dry freight only. They didn't ask why. But sometimes, late at night when I'm on the road, I think about those scratches, that message, and I wonder, what if something was in there? What if it's still there? What if it's waiting? March 16th, 2019. I was hauling electronics from Detroit to Grand Rapids, cutting through Michigan backcountry during a late winter storm. It was supposed to be a simple run, 5 hours, maybe 6 with the weather. But around midnight, my GPS lost signal. The screen flickered once, twice, then went black. My phone showed no service. The CB crackled with static, but no voices. I was on my own. I'd driven this route before, so I wasn't too worried. I knew the general direction. Just keep heading west, watch for signs, stay on the main highway. But then I saw a detour sign. Road work ahead, follow detour. The arrow pointed right, onto what looked like an old 2-lane road cutting through farmland. I didn't remember any construction notices, but storms can cause closures. So I followed it. The road was narrow. No street lights, no signs. Just faded yellow lines and darkness pressing in on both sides. The snow was falling harder now, and the temperature gauge in my cab read -15. I drove for 20 minutes, then 30. No signs indicating where the detour was leading. No other vehicles. Just endless empty roads stretching into the white darkness. That's when I started seeing them. People, standing on the side of the road. First, just one. A man in old-fashioned clothes like something from the 1940s. Dark coat, wide-brimmed hat, hands at his sides. Just standing there, watching me pass. Then there were more. Every 100 feet, another person. Men, women, some in old farm clothes, some in dresses, some in suits, all standing perfectly still in the snow, faces pale and expressionless, watching my truck roll by. Dozens of them. I slowed down, heart pounding. What the hell was this? Some kind of community? A religious group? But who stands outside in -15 weather during a blizzard? I tried to speed up. My engine roared, RPMs climbing, but my speedometer wouldn't go past 30. It was like something was holding me back, limiting my speed. The people kept appearing. More and more of them, lining both sides of the road now, just standing, watching. Their faces were wrong, too pale, too smooth, like mannequins, and none of them blinked. None of them moved. They just watched. I tried the CB. Anyone out there? I'm on some kind of detour off I-96. There are people on the road. Can anyone hear me? Static. I drove for what felt like hours. The road never changed. Same faded lines. Same empty fields on either side. Same people standing in the snow. And then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. I'd seen the same man twice. Same coat. Same hat. Same position. Standing on the right shoulder, 50 feet ahead. I passed him 10 minutes ago. No, I whispered. No, I'm going in circles. I kept driving, and sure enough, there he was again. Same man. Same spot. Like I was looping. But my odometer said I'd driven 40 miles. The people started moving. Not walking. Just turning. Slowly rotating their heads to follow my truck as I passed. All of them, in perfect synchronization. I felt tears running down my face. I didn't know if I was crying from fear or exhaustion or something else. I just wanted out. Please, I whispered. Please let me go. And then, just like that, I was back on the highway. The main road. I-96. Bright overhead lights. Clear lane markers. Other vehicles passing me. The storm was gone. The sun was coming up. It was daylight. I pulled over immediately, nearly causing an accident, and sat on the shoulder with my hazards on. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I checked my GPS. It showed me circling a field. Just a big empty field south of the highway, round and round, for 3 hours. But there was no road in that field. I pulled up satellite images on my phone. The field was empty. No roads. No buildings. Just farmland. That's impossible, I said out loud. I was on a road. I drove on a road. But according to every map, every satellite image, every official record, there was no road there. Just empty land. I drove to the nearest town and asked locals about detours, about old roads, about anything that might explain what I'd experienced. No one knew what I was talking about. But one old man at a diner looked at me strangely when I described the people in old-fashioned clothes. "You're not the first driver to mention that," he said quietly. "Every few years, someone comes through talking about a road that doesn't exist. People standing in the snow. Most folks think they're just tired, hallucinating. But," depressed, he looked out the window at the gray morning sky. "But back in the 1940s, there was a road through there, connected two farming towns. One winter, a blizzard hit. Whole community got stranded. 23 people froze to death waiting for help that never came. What happened to the road? They tore it up 50 years ago, said it was cursed, said drivers kept disappearing. I never took that route again, and I never will, because I know that road is still there, even if it doesn't exist. And those people are still waiting, still watching, still hoping someone will stop." It was January 15th, 2018, and I remember the date because it was exactly 3 days after my daughter's birthday. I was hauling a full load of electronics from Denver to Billings, running behind schedule because of weather delays. The forecast had predicted light snow, maybe some wind. What I got instead was one of the worst blizzards Montana had seen in a decade. By 11 p.m., I was on Highway 90, somewhere between nowhere and the middle of nothing, and the world had disappeared. The whiteout was complete, total sensory deprivation. I couldn't see the road, couldn't see the sky, couldn't even see my own hood ornament half the time. Just endless white static in my headlights, like driving through television snow. I'd slowed to a crawl, maybe 15-20 miles per hour, with my hazards blinking uselessly in the storm. My hands ached from gripping the wheel. My eyes burned from staring into that hypnotic swirl of white. The CB was full of warnings. Accidents ahead, roads closing, other drivers pulling over to wait it out. I should have stopped, should have found a rest area and called it a night. But I was stubborn. I had a delivery window to make, bills to pay, a family depending on me. So I kept pushing forward into that frozen hell. That's when I saw her. At first, I thought it was a trick of the snow. A shadow, a road sign, something my exhausted brain was misinterpreting. But then my headlights caught her clearly, and there was no mistaking what I was seeing. A woman, standing on the shoulder of the highway, right arm extended, thumb out, hitchhiking, in the middle of a goddamn blizzard. She was wearing a summer dress. Light blue, thin fabric, sleeveless. No coat, no hat, no gloves. Her dark hair whipped around her face in the wind, plastered to her skin by snow and ice. She stood perfectly still, like a statue, like the cold didn't exist. My first thought, this woman is going to die. My second thought, something is very, very wrong here. But what choice did I have? I'm a father. I've got 2 daughters back home. If one of them was stranded in weather like this, I'd want someone, anyone, to stop. The moral calculus was simple. I couldn't live with myself if I drove past and she froze to death. So I hit the brakes, gently, because you don't do anything sudden in a whiteout, and pulled onto the shoulder about 50 feet past her. I put the truck in park, turned on my interior lights, and reached for the passenger door handle. But I never touched it, because when I turned to open the door, she was already inside. I didn't see her walk up, didn't hear the door open, didn't hear anything except the wind and my own suddenly racing heartbeat. But she was sitting in my passenger seat, hands folded neatly in her lap, staring straight ahead through the windshield like she'd been there the whole time. Jesus Christ, I muttered, hand pressed to my chest. You scared the hell out of me. She didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge I'd spoken. Just sat there, perfectly still, water dripping from her hair and dress onto my seat, pooling beneath her, soaking into the fabric. That's when I noticed how wet she was. Not just damp, soaked, like she'd been standing in that storm for hours. And her skin, God, her skin. It was gray-blue, the color of meat that's been in the freezer too long. Her lips were cracked and purple. Ice crystals clung to her eyelashes. Miss, I said louder this time. Are you okay? Can you hear me? No response. Her eyes, dark, empty, unfocused, stared at something I couldn't see, something far away. I cranked the heat up to maximum, feeling the warm air blast from the vents. You're freezing. Where do you need to go? Where were you headed? Slowly, so slowly it seemed mechanical. She turned her head toward me, and when she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper, but I heard every syllable clearly. Thank you for stopping. I forced a smile, trying to project calm I didn't feel. Of course, no problem. But seriously, where can I take you? You need a hospital? They all drove past me, she continued, as if I hadn't spoken. Every single one. I waited so long. A chill ran down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold. How long were you out there? She tilted her head, like she was trying to remember something from a long time ago. I don't know anymore. It's been so cold. So very, very cold. I just wanted someone to see me, to know I was there. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. Her breath, or rather, the absence of it. Mine was fogging in the air, even with the heat blasting. The cab was still cold enough that I could see every exhale. But her? Nothing. Her lips moved when she spoke, but no fog, no condensation, no visible breath. Miss, I think you might be in shock, I said. reaching behind my seat for the emergency blanket I kept there. "Let me." The moment my hand touched her shoulder, pain exploded through my fingers. It was like grabbing a block of dry ice. So cold it burned. I yanked my hand back with a yelp, and when I looked down, my fingertips were bright red and stinging. Frostbite, from touching her for less than a second. I looked back at her, and now I could see details I'd missed before. The ice crystals weren't just on her eyelashes. They were spreading, creeping across her cheeks, down her neck, across her bare arms. She was freezing, actively freezing, right in front of me. "Who are you?" I whispered, fear tightening my throat. She smiled, a slow, sad, infinitely lonely smile. "No one stopped," she said again. I waited, I waved, I called out, but they all kept driving. The snow got deeper, the cold got worse, and I waited so long. My hands were shaking. "What happened to you?" "I just wanted to go home," she whispered. "I just wanted someone to take me home." I glanced away just for a second to grab my phone from the console. I needed to call someone. Highway patrol. An ambulance. Someone who could explain what the hell was happening. But when I looked back, she was gone. The passenger seat was empty. Completely, impossibly empty. But it was soaked. Water dripped steadily onto the floor, forming a puddle. And the seat itself was frozen solid, covered in a thin layer of ice that spread outward like frost on a window. I reached out with a trembling hand and touched the fabric. It was like touching the inside of a freezer. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." I threw the truck into gear and got out of there. Didn't stop, didn't slow down, just drove, white-knuckled and shaking, until I reached the next town 30 miles up the road. I pulled into a 24-hour gas station, parked under the brightest lights I could find, and sat there for an hour trying to convince myself I'd hallucinated the whole thing. But the seat was still wet, still frozen. The next morning, after the storm had passed and I'd managed a few hours of fitful sleep in a motel, I did something I knew I'd regret. I pulled out my phone and started searching. Missing persons. Highway 90, Montana, winter. I found her in less than 10 minutes. Emily Rose Cartwright, 26 years old. Disappeared February 12, 2015. Her car had broken down on Highway 90 during a blizzard, almost the exact same spot where I'd picked up my passenger. She'd called for help, but the storm was too severe. By the time emergency services could reach her, she was gone. They found her body 2 days later, less than a quarter mile from her car. She tried to walk to get help, tried to flag down passing vehicles, but the storm was too thick, the visibility too poor. She froze to death on the side of the highway, waiting for someone to stop. And when they showed her picture in the news article, same dark hair, same blue dress, same pale face, I knew it was her. 3 years dead, and she was still there, still waiting, still hoping someone would finally see her. I still drive Highway 90. It's part of my regular route. But every time there's a storm, every time the snow starts falling thick and the visibility drops, I feel it, that presence, that cold. And sometimes, late at night when the wind is howling and the whiteout closes in around me, I see her in my mirrors, standing on the shoulder, thumb out, still waiting for someone to take her home. I never stop anymore. I can't. Because I'm afraid if I do, this time she won't leave. February 6, 2019. That's the night I learned that some roads don't want to let you go. I was hauling auto parts from Milwaukee to Madison. Should have been a simple 3-hour run. Easy money. I'd driven that route 100 times. Knew every exit, every truck stop, every decent place to grab coffee. It was familiar territory. Safe. The storm wasn't supposed to be bad. The forecast called for light snow, maybe an inch or two. But forecasts lie. By the time I hit Highway 94 around midnight, I was driving through a full-blown blizzard. The kind where the snow doesn't fall so much as a tack. Horizontal sheets of white that turned my windshield into a kaleidoscope of chaos. Visibility dropped to maybe 10 feet. I slowed to 25 miles per hour, hazards on, praying some kid in a sedan wouldn't rear-end me. The highway had emptied out. Smart drivers had already pulled over. But I was running late on a delivery, and my dispatcher had made it clear. Get there by morning or don't bother coming back. So I kept going. That's when I passed mile marker 127. Nothing unusual about it. Just a standard green reflective sign with white numbers, catching my headlights for a split second before disappearing into the storm behind me. I glanced at my odometer out of habit. Professional drivers do that, keeping mental track of distance, fuel consumption, time to destination. I kept driving through the whiteout, counting down the minutes until I could pull off at the next rest area. 10 minutes later, I passed mile marker 127 again. I frowned, glancing at my odometer. I'd definitely driven more than a mile. The numbers showed I'd covered 12 miles since the last marker I'd consciously noted. But there it was, 127. Must have misread it the first time. I muttered to myself, shaking my head. I was tired. The storm was disorienting. Easy to make mistakes. I kept driving. 20 minutes later, marker 127. This time, there was no mistaking it. I'd been watching for it specifically, and my odometer confirmed I'd driven 22 miles since the last sighting. But the sign clearly, unmistakably said 127. My hands tightened on the wheel. This wasn't right. This wasn't possible. I grabbed my CB radio, keyed the mic. Anyone on 94 westbound? This is Unit 552. Anyone out there? Static. Just wind noise and crackling interference. I tried again. This is Unit 552 on 94 West. Can anyone hear me? I think I'm having some kind of navigation issue. More static. Then my GPS started acting strange. The little blue that represented my truck began circling, around and around, tracing a loop on the screen. The estimated arrival time flickered, jumping randomly. 2:15 a.m., 5:47 a.m., 11:03 p.m., 3:22 a.m. What the hell? I whispered. I tried my cell phone. No signal. Not even one bar. Just a message. No service. I was completely cut off. For another 20 minutes, I drove through that whiteout, and then, inevitably, there it was again. Mile marker 127. Okay, I said out loud, voice shaking slightly. Okay, this is not normal. This is not happening. But it was happening. I keyed the CB again, this time just leaving it open, broadcasting into the void. If anyone can hear me, I'm stuck in some kind of loop on Highway 94. I keep passing the same mile marker. If someone is out there, please respond. For a long moment, nothing. Then a voice crackled through the speaker. Male. Calm. With an undertone of resignation that made my skin crawl. You're in the loop now. I grabbed the mic. Who is this? What loop? What's happening? You won't get out until it lets you. Until what lets me. What are you talking about? Just keep driving, the voice said. Don't stop. Whatever you do, don't stop. And, he paused. Don't look in your mirrors. What? Why not? Just don't. Trust me. Keep your eyes forward. Who the hell is this? How do you know about? The CB went dead. Just like that. Back to static. I wanted to stop. Every instinct screamed at me to pull over, to wait this out, to call for help. But the voice had said to keep driving. And something in his tone, that flat, defeated tone, made me believe him. So I drove. For 3 hours I drove through that storm. Through that impossible, repeating stretch of highway. Passing mile marker 127 over and over and over. Sometimes every 10 minutes. Sometimes every 30. But always the same marker. Always 127. My fuel gauge didn't move. My odometer kept climbing 50 miles, 80 miles, 120 miles, but the marker never changed. And I didn't look in my mirrors. God help me, I wanted to. Every instinct screamed at me to check, to see what was behind me, but I kept my eyes locked forward. On the road, on the swirling snow, on anything except those mirrors. That's when I started hearing things. Voices, faint at first, muffled, coming from somewhere behind my cab. Whispering, murmuring. I couldn't make out words, but the tone was wrong. Too many voices overlapping, speaking in rhythms that didn't match. I gripped the wheel tighter, jaw clenched, and kept driving. The voices got louder, clearer, and I started recognizing some of them. My ex-wife, my father, my dispatcher, people from my past, speaking in fragments. Should have stopped. Too late now. Never getting out. Keep your eyes on the road. I whispered to myself. Don't listen. Don't look back. Then something hit my trailer. Bang. A heavy impact, like someone had punched the side of it. Then another, and another, like something was walking alongside my truck, slamming the metal walls as it passed. Bang, bang, bang. I didn't look. Then I felt it. Cold breath on the back of my neck, like someone was sitting in the sleeper berth behind me, leaning forward, right behind my head, so close I could feel their presence, feel the cold radiating off them. And they were breathing, slow, deliberate, right behind my ear, every muscle in my body locked up. My hands were white-knuckled on the wheel. Sweat poured down my face despite the cold. You're not real, I whispered. You're not real. Keep driving. Just keep driving. The breathing got louder, closer. I could feel it on my skin. And then a voice, right in my ear, so close I felt the words more than heard them. Look at me. I didn't. I kept my eyes forward. On the road. On the snow. On the white lines barely visible through the storm. Look. Me. Tears were streaming down my face. I don't know if it was from fear or exhaustion or something else, but I didn't look. I wouldn't look. And then suddenly it stopped. The voices went silent. The banging ceased. The cold breath disappeared. The presence behind me vanished like it had never existed. I glanced at the road ahead. Mile marker 128. I passed it. I was out. The storm started to clear almost immediately. Within minutes, visibility went from 10 feet to half a mile. I could see the road, the lane markers, other vehicles ahead. My GPS snapped back to life, the blue dot returning to its normal position. My phone signal came back, full bars. I pulled off at the next exit, hands shaking so badly I could barely steer. Found a rest area and parked. Just sat there with the engine idling, trying to process what had just happened. After 20 minutes, I finally looked at my logbook. According to the timestamp, only 15 minutes had passed since I'd first noted mile marker 127. 15 minutes. But I'd driven for 3 hours. Passed that marker dozens of times. Heard those voices. Felt that presence. I'd lived 3 hours in that loop. But according to every record, only 15 minutes had elapsed. I called dispatch, tried to explain. Told them about the loop, the voices, the lost time. They said I was exhausted, hallucinating, that I needed to take a mandatory rest period before continuing. Maybe they're right. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe the storm played tricks on my mind. Maybe there's a rational explanation for all of it. But I know what I experienced. I know what I heard. And I know I'll never drive Highway 94 in winter again. Because whatever that loop was, whatever force holds you there, whatever watches you from behind, I don't ever want to encounter it again. And I still wonder, what would have happened if I'd looked in the mirrors? What was behind me? What was breathing on my neck? I don't know, and I never want to find out.